Welcome to another episode of our series on the Rambam, Maimonides. The subject is character development, and we're on the third perek. And Michael and myself want to dedicate this episode in memory of our paternal grandmother, that's Esther Bat Miriam, and also our father's sister, that was Rosie Bat Esther, who's the archetype. Mother and daughter are actually on the same day. And without any further ado, let's hand over to Michael. B'chavod.
Thank you very much, Rav Sheach. Yes, one other thing I'd like to say. It is in memory of Esther Bat Miriam, who's my paternal grandmother, as you mentioned, and also my aunt Rosie Bas Esther, who was my father's sister. Just one thing I'd like to say is, I've given some shiurim about Tsar Balechayim. Rosie's daughter, Nessia, who lives in Israel, in her spare time, I think she's an advocate for animal rights, and she works with the various shelters in her own time, and I deeply respect that. And you can see that Rosie brought her up in the right way, with the right values. And, I talk a lot about these sort of things, but Nessia is a person of action. You can talk as much as you want unless you go out and do things. It means very little unless you do things like she did.
I never knew that. This is our first cousin. She's
she
fantastic.
is. So
Hashem should bless her with the zivuk, Bezrat Hashem.
Please God, yes. So this episode we will be talking about character development. Chapter 3, it begins with talking about asceticism, which is the self-discipline not to have any indulgences in life, which Rambam is very much against. So we start with Rambam, and he says, Shema Yoma Adam, a person might say, Hoil v'hikana v'hata'ava v'hakavod וכיוצא בהם דרך רעה הן ומוצין את האדם מן העולם. A person might say, as we said I prefaced this, we finished chapter 2 with the quote from Pirkei Avot that envy, desire, pursuit of honor, and such like are things that will take you from this earth. Okay, so this is where Rambam continues from, quoting this. So he says, since envy, desire, the pursuit of honor, and the like are a wrong path and drive a person from this world, efrosh mehem biyotzev etzrachek le'ad ha'acharon. I shall separate from them to a very great degree and move away from them to the opposite extreme. So I'm questioning myself, if it's so bad to have all these pursuit of honor and envy and desire that come about through normal life, perhaps I should just go and live in a cave or become like a monastic, a hermit. Rambam says this is very wrong. For example,
other religions think like that, by the way.
Yes, exactly.
They think you're supposed to live in a...
Yeah. Ad shelo yochal basar, v'lo yishteh yayin, v'lo yisa isha, v'lo yeshev badira na'a, v'lo yilbash malbush naveh. For example, he will not eat meat, nor drink wine, nor live in a pleasant home, nor wear fine clothing. Ella hasak v'hatzema v'hakasher v'kayotze bahen kugon kehinei ha'ovdei kochavim. Rather, he wears sackcloth and coarse wool clothes and such like, just as the pagan priests do.
There we go.
So he does mention that. Just a side point, in Shmona Parakim, chapter 4, the Rambam makes a similar but more lengthy condemnation of asceticism. There he also mentions other ascetic practices, such as refraining from sleep and seeking solitude in the mountains and deserts. And also, just to go back to say, and he quotes, just as the pagan priests do. It's interesting to note that the translation follows the published text of Mishneh Torah, which states Kohanei ha'avdei ha'kochavim. However, many manuscripts and early printed editions stated Kohanei Edom, Roman priests, which would seem to indicate that the Rambam had hermit-like Catholic monastic orders in mind. So Rambam is basically saying a monk's life is a mug's life, you know. And he continues, Gamze derech ra'ah hi va'asur lelech ba, hamhalech b'derech zu nikra chote. This too is a bad path, and it is forbidden to walk upon it. Whoever follows this path is a sinner, as it's implied in Bamidbar. V'chipeh alav me'asher chata ala nefesh. Regarding a Nazarite, a Nozir, and it quotes, and he, the priest shall make an atonement for him having sinned regarding his soul. So what did the Nazir has done? What? How has he sinned? So he
basically, his motivation to become a Nazir is warranted. Certainly in many respects, because the Torah juxtaposes the idea of the Nazir with the idea of the Sotah, which is the woman who is disgraced in front of her husband because she secluded herself with a man, right. And after many stages, she gets to the stage where she has to drink this Mei Sotah, this water of the Sotah, and if the allegations are correct, then she actually explodes. So to see a woman in this degradation would prompt certain men might look at this and say, look, I never want to get to this level, so I will take on the prospect of becoming a Nazir, which means no grape products, including wine, of course, no contact with a dead body,
no cutting hair,
and no cutting hair. So to some degree, it's warranted, because he saw something terrible and he wants to put harchakot, but at the same time, you're not indulging in pleasures which are permitted and in fact are mitzvot. Let's say kiddush.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, you make kiddush on wine.
Yeah.
How can you go without that?
Yeah.
So the Nazir is a very strange anomaly. It means on one side it's for a good reason, on the other side he's missing out. So he has to, part of his exit from being a Nazir back into normality is he has to bring korbanot. Why do you have to bring korbanot? Well, he's not a sinner. Well, according to what you're saying, from the Rambam, he is a sinner.
Yes, exactly. And aside from being a Nazir, the Rambam's reasons why he doesn't agree with the idea of asceticism is, for example, it might lead a person to poor health, illness, and a lack of strength, which would prevent him from serving Hashem, as we will see, the Rambam will talk about. And also, the person might err and feel that he has fulfilled his obligation to serve Hashem through these restrictive practices. As a result, he may never feel the need to dedicate himself to the service of God as is prescribed in the Torah. So he may think that just depriving himself of pleasure is enough, is service to God. It isn't. He's got to serve God, and that's not the way by depriving himself.
Has to be in optimal health. Use all the faculties Hashem gave you in the service of Hashem.
Exactly. We'll see shortly that the another disadvantage of asceticism, stressed very heavily by the teachings of Kabbalah and Chassidut, it may be hinted in the Zohar, states that Hashem created the world in order to let himself be known. Similarly, Tanya, in chapter 33, explains that Hashem created the world because he desired to have a dwelling place in the lower worlds. Thus, a person who tends to otherworldliness and asceticism defeats God's purpose in creation. And Rambam continues, Amru chachamim oma im nazir shelo perish ela min hayayin tzarich kapara hamonea atzmo mikol davar v'davar alachat kama v'kama. Our Rabbanim declared, if the Nazirite who abstained only from wine requires atonement, how much more so does one who abstains from everything? Lefichach savu chachamim shelo yimna adam atzmo ela midvarim shemana'ato HaTorah bilvad. Therefore, our Rabbanim directed man to abstain only from those things which the Torah denies him. V'lo yiheh oseh atzmo b'ndarim uvishvuot al dvarim hamutarim, and not to forbid himself things permitted by vows and by oaths of abstention. And Rambam continues, Kach amru chachamim lo daecha ma she'asora Torah ela she'ata oseh alecha devarim acherim. Therefore, our sages stated, are not those things which the Torah has prohibited enough, sufficient for you, that you must forbid additional things for yourself? In Shmona Perakim, the Rambam prefaces his statement with the following comment, and I quote, our sages have made statements about this subject which are more marvelous than any others that I have seen, end quote. The general statement also refers to those who fast constantly. In Shemona Parakim, the Rambam also criticizes excessive fasting. He quotes the prophet Zechariah, who questions the motives of the Jews' fasts. And I quote, was it for me that you fasted? And exhorts them to, and I quote, practice true justice and show kindness and mercy, every man to his brother, end quote, as the proper service of Hashem. To underscore this point, he concludes with a prophecy that even the public fasts will ultimately be transformed into festivals and days of rejoicing. And Rambam continues, Bachlal hazeh elu shemitlayin tamid einon b'derech tova. The general statement also refers to those who fast constantly. They are not following a good path. Ve'osoru chachamim sheyehyeh adam mesagef atzmo b'ta'anis. For our Rabbonim have forbidden a man to mortify himself by fasting. So excessive fasting is against the law, so to speak. And Rambam continues, Ve'al kol hadvarim ha'elu v'kayotze bahen tziva shloma v'yomah. And of all the above and their like, King Solomon directed and said in Koheles, Zion, Al tehit tzadik harbe ve'al titchakam yoter lama teshomem. Do not be overly righteous and do not be overly clever. Why make yourself desolate?
Chacham.
Yeah. Halacha 2. Tzorech ha'adam she'kavin labo v'chol ma'asov kolam leyadeh etz Hashem baruch hu bilvad. A person should direct his heart and the totality of his behavior to one goal, to becoming aware of Hashem. V'yihiyeh shivto v'kumo v'diburo hakol le'umat zeh hadvar. The way he rests, he rises and speaks should all be directed to this end. So the Rambam in Halacha Aleph is instructing us not to follow the ways of asceticism, and in this Halacha he teaches us how to become close to Hashem, to realize the true meaning of existence, which is to become aware of Hashem and to serve Hashem. And he continues, Keitzad Kishiyisha v'yitzeno v'yaseh malacha litol sechar lo yihiyeh b'libo likbotz mamon bilvad. For example, when involved in business dealings or while working for a wage, he should not think solely of gathering money. Ella ya'aseh devarim ha'elu k'dei sheyimtza devarim shehaguf tzorech lahem me'achila u'shtia v'ashivas beis u'nshias isha. Rather, he should do these things, in other words, work, so that he will be able to obtain that which the body needs: food, drink, a home, and a wife. We notice that it mentions a wife here, that in monastic orders the whole idea was celibacy and not taking a wife. Okay, but if you look at, I think it's Yomah, I forget where it is, but the Kohen Gadol, who was the holiest person, on the holiest day on Yom Kippur, was charged to go into the Beis HaMikdash, the Kodesh Kodashim, the holiest place, but only one condition, he had to be married. So that's very important. Exact opposite of what...
More than that, the Mishnah says they prepare for him a second wife.
Right.
Yeah, and then it goes on saying, well, maybe a third or a fourth wife, but then we say, no, ein ledavasof. So at least we prepare him one wife in case his first wife dies and he won't be married.
Yeah.
Ad kedei kach.
Right. So Rambam continues. Kain כשיאכל וישתה ויבעל לא ישים לבו לעשות דברים האלו כדי להנות בלבד עד שנמצא שאינו אוכל ושותה אלא המתוק לחיך ויבעל כדי להנוס. Similarly, when he eats, drinks and engages in intimate relations, he should not intend to do these things solely for pleasure to the point where he will eat and drink only that which is sweet to the palate and engage in intimate relations for pleasure. אלא יושים על ליבו שאכל וישתה כדי להברות גופו ואיבריו בלבד. Rather, he should take care to eat and drink only in order to be healthy in body and limb. And he continues, Rambam continues, לפיכך לא יאכל כל שהחיך מתאווה ככלב וחמור. Therefore, he should not eat all that the palate desires like a dog or a donkey. אלא יאכל דברים המועילים לגוף אם מרים אם מתוקים. Rather, he should eat what is beneficial for the body, be it bitter or sweet. So he's saying control is key.
Yeah.
Even though it may taste sweet to the palate, you mustn't indulge like an animal. You have to take care of your body, and you have to put into your body what is healthy for it, even if it's bitter or sweet.
Yeah, I think we said in one of my previous shiurim, I can't remember who, I think it could have been the Rambam who said this, that when you're eating and you stop, let's say you're enjoying a meal and you stop just for a moment and then you carry on, it's like you fasted, because it just means you've held yourself back that little bit.
From providing
don't eat like a raftan, like a shoveling it down.
Yeah.
A little bit restraint.
Yeah. So Rambam continues, Lo ya'achal devarim hara'im laguf afal pi shehein metukim lechech. Conversely, he should not eat what is harmful for the body, even though it is sweet to the palate. So, that tub of Haagen-Dazs, you should be very, very sparing with it.
Yeah.
Even though it's sweet to the palate, you can't do the whole thing in one sitting.
Yeah, sure.
Ketzad, mi shehaya bisro cham, v'lo ya'achal basar, v'lo dvash, v'lo yishteh yayin. כעניין שאמר שלמה דרך משל in Mishle, ochal dvash harbot lo tov. For example, a person with a warm constitution, most likely meaning hot-blooded, or should not eat meat or honey, nor drink wine, as Shlomo HaMelech stated in a parable in Mishle 25:27. The eating of much honey is not good. So he's suggesting if you have a hot-blooded person, you should avoid eating meat or honey or drinking wine. And he continues, V'shote mei ha'alashin afal pi shehu ma. He suggests one should drink endive juice, even though it is bitter. So his endive is chicory, if I'm right.
Yeah.
Even though it's a very bitter drink, when you juice it, it's extremely good for you. I eat endive. I actually bought it since I started learning this. I bought just to taste it again, but I hadn't eaten it for a while, and it's very interesting. I read about it as well. It's very high in all sorts of vitamins, but also it has a very interesting use. It is toxic to parasitic things in your body.
Really?
So if you and this must be very, we're talking about Rambam's time. Put yourself back in there. It's the 12th century, where there's no refrigeration, there's no pasteurization, so things were salted, things perhaps went off quickly. And also you had the parasites were prevalent. People didn't wash things as thoroughly, and they're not prepared as they are today. So the possibility of having parasites in your system was probably quite high in the 12th century. So these endives, this chicory, is actually, apparently, it is toxic to nematode parasites of the humans and also animals, but also in humans. It's a very good thing if you have a parasitic invasion in your body. These are toxic to them. So very interesting that he suggests something that's medically proven today to have the desired effect.
Probably if it's bitter, well, you could probably add like something to sweeten it up, maybe honey or something.
Well, you could, but it's not that. I mean, look,
Yeah.
in the morning sometimes I go to Pret a Manger or somewhere and I buy these ginger shots. It's fresh ginger with apple juice, and it's in a tiny little container. It's like a shot. You dunk it, you drink it. It burns the back of the throat. It's not a pleasure to drink it, but you get a pleasure for knowing that it's definitely doing you a lot of good. So in the same way, the bitterness of the juice shouldn't put you off, because you know it's doing you good. And also, it's also in Maimonides' medical aphorisms. It's also given as a remedy for what they call a warm liver constitution. So it continues. Shenimtza shotev ve'ochel derech refuah bilvad kedei sheyivra v'ya'amod shalem hoyel v'hi efshar le'odam lichios ela ba'achila u'shtiya. And he continues after suggesting this endive juice. For then he will be eating and drinking for medical reasons only, in order to become healthy and be whole. For a man cannot exist without eating and drinking. So he's saying drink the bitter endive juice because it's good for you, and be happy that it's good for you, and you know that it'll do you good, even though it's a little bit bitter. So Rambam continues, V'chein keshiyivol lo yivol ela k'dei lahavot gufo or k'dei l'kayim et hazera. Similarly, he should not have sexual relationships except to keep his body healthy and to preserve the human race. Lefichach eino boel kol zaman sheti'aveh ela kol eitz sheyadea shehu tzorich l'hotzi shekavat zera k'mo derech harafua or l'kayim et zera. Therefore, we should not engage in intercourse whenever he feels the desire, but when he knows that he requires an emission of the seed of life for medical reasons or in order to preserve the human race. So halacha 3, haminhag atzmo al pi harafua im sam al libo sheyihye kol gufo ve'yavorov shaleilim bilvad ve'sheyihu lo banim osim malachto ve'yamalin l'tzarko enzu derech tova. A person who accustoms himself to live by the rules of medicine does not follow a proper path if his sole intention is that his entire body and limbs be healthy, and that he have his children who will do his work and toil for him. So Rambam is saying, I'm giving you advice. Don't just do it for the sake of making your body stronger or having stronger arms, stronger legs, or whatever. You have to have the correct intention, and don't have children for the sole purpose that they will one day work for you. Although probably that was prevalent in the old days when harvest time came round, that the children would help with would be a considerable help in the household. This is not the reason why you should have children or why you should keep your body thing. It should be in service of Hashem. And he continues, Ela yasim alibo sheyihye gufo sholem v'chazok k'dei shetihye nafsho yeshora l'da'at es Hashem. Rather, he should have the intention that his body be whole and strong in order for his inner soul to be upright, so that it will be able to know Hashem. So this is the whole point of staying fit, is to be able to be a good vehicle for your soul. Like I've said in previous episodes, if you're in a fit and healthy body, you can sit and learn for longer. If you have backaches or toothaches or these sort of things, it detracts your attention. When you're in a peaceful body, you're still, your mind is still, and can delve as deeply as Hashem wants you to deal, or how you can deal. So Rambam continues, Shei efsha sheyovin vayishtachel b'chamchot v'hu ra'ev v'chole o echad me'evarav koev. It's impossible to understand and become knowledgeable in the wisdoms when one is starving or sick or when one of his limbs pains him, like I just said. V'yosim al libo sheyihyeh lo ben ulai yihyeh chacham gadol b'Yisrael. And one should intend, if you're going to have children, to have a son or daughter with the hope that perhaps he will be a wise and great man in Israel. Nimtza hamhalech b'derech zu kol yomov oved es Hashem tomid. Thus, whoever walks in such a path all his days will be serving Hashem constantly. Afilu b'sha'a shenoseh v'noten v'afilu b'sha'a sheboel b'pnei shemach shavato b'kal kadei sheyimtza torachav ad shehiyeh gufo shalem la'avod es Hashem. Even in the midst of his business dealings, even during intercourse, sexual intercourse, this intention in all matters is to fulfill his needs so that his body be whole to serve Hashem. You must always have the intention that this is for a godly purpose. Even in business, and various other things, you must have the intention. Even if you must be, Rambam says in, I think it's Hilchot De'ot, he says that Hashem's chachma fills everything in this world, every bush, every shrub, every rock, animate, inanimate, the planets. Hashem's chachma is in everything. You must search it out, and you must be, you must learn about Hashem through these things. So simple thing, you go for a walk in the park, observe nature, look and see the way that Hashem formed things. He formed them to a ratio, the golden ratio. Try and analyze things when you're walking and seeing, I see how it follows that ratio. I see how Hashem's knowledge, Hashem's wisdom is evident in that piece of nature, that tree, the way the branches spread itself and how it grows, how it revolves. These sort of things are fulfilling learning about Hashem. You can learn from nature about Hashem. And Rambam continues, Afilu b'sha'ah shehu yoshen, and even when he sleeps, im yashen leda'at kedei shetanuach da'ato alav vayonuach gufo. If he retires with the intention that his mind and body rest, kedei shelo yichale v'lo yuchal la'ovad es Hashem v'hu chole nimtza'et sheino shelo avoda lamakom baruch hu. And when he sleeps, if he has the intention that he take ill and be unable to serve Hashem because he is sick, then his sleep is service to the omnipresent or the place. Blessed be He. And I'll come back. I got a question about that I'll come back to. But just to conclude this perek, Rambam continues, Ve'al inyan zeh tzivu chachamim ve'yomru. And in this matter, our Rabbanim have directed us and said in Mishneh Torah, chapter Yud Beis, V'chol ma'asecha yihiyu l'shem hashamayim. All your deeds shall be for the sake of heaven. V'hu she'oma Shlomo b'chachmato, and Shlomo HaMelech declared in his wisdom in Mishleh, V'chol da'achecha da'ehu v'hu ya'asher archetype. Know him in all your ways, and he will straighten your paths. So the message is, you must do things, you must learn about Hashem, but also your intentions must be always, like if you're working, that what you're doing for business is l'shem shamayim, in the respect that it's you're providing for your family, you're providing for your children, you're giving yourself the opportunity to be fiscally able to raise a family in the correct way, provide their education, pay for their education. So these sort of things, you are serving Hashem when you're doing this. But I'd like to go back to a question regarding the previous few pasukim. We mentioned Hashem's name 4 or 5 times in the previous 2 or 3 sentences, but in the very last time we mention Hashem, we refer to Hashem as Lamokom Baruch Hu instead of Hashem, the name. We mentioned just 2 pasukim back. Nimtza halech b'derech zu kol yamav oved es Hashem. And 2 sentences later, Achi hiya gufo sholem la'avod es Hashem. Another sentence later, K'dei shelo yechale v'lo yuchal la'avod es Hashem. And then it concludes in a few words later, Nimtzeet sheno shelo ovada lamakom baruch hu. Now he mentioned Hashem's name referred to as Hashem, and the very last time when he's talking about the sleep, he mentions lamakom baruch hu. I believe there's always a reason why Rambam, he did this in the last chapter, in the last episode, where he referred to Hashem as the Yotzer, the former of the world, the former of the human beings. And I gave my reasons why I thought that was so. And again, he does it in here, where it's almost like a hidden message as to why he would refer to Hashem as Lamokom Baruch Hu. So we're talking about in that posuk, that halacha, that section, we're talking about sleep. So what can we how can we interpret this? I ask a question from a physical point of view. What is sleep? What is sleep? What is it used for? What benefits from sleep? It seems to me that the one thing that benefits is your brain. Sleep begins in your brain. You fall asleep in your head. You need 8 hours sleep. It's been studies have shown that the brain processes information and files information and creates memories while you're asleep. It also detoxifies itself. And also obviously helps the body to refresh itself. But a big part of it is that it does something to the brain. The brain is an incredibly complex thing that we know very little about, surprisingly little about. The scientists have made telescopes that peer to the edge of the universe, you can look at billions of light years away. They can look at things that are millions of light years away and detect what's in the atmosphere or in the chemical makeup of a particular star. But the universe that is within their heads, which is 3 inches behind their eyes, they're looking through the telescope, they have no idea. Apparently the comparison between the brain, it's as complex as the universe. It has as many parts as the universe, 100 billion neurons connected with something like 100 trillion connections.
Synapses.
And it's synapses, something like that, yeah. And they compare it. The scientists are shocked at how similar the makeup of the clusters of galaxies and neurons, how similar they are. So it's almost like you have a universe within your head. So the brain is an extremely important part of the physical being.
That's why they say man is a microcosm of the universe.
Yes, exactly. Literally, physically, yes. So Rambam is telling you must sleep, and it refers to Hashem as Lamokom. So how can we interpret this? If you sleep 3 or 4 hours a night, you are likely to bring yourself degenerative diseases in your brain. That they say that Alzheimer's is accelerated if you don't get enough sleep. Alcohol, if it destroys brain cells, you should be careful how much you should consume. You shouldn't consume more than the body can deal with. So if, as Rambam is teaching you, that you must consider your body as a temple, so it's a temple, you're serving Hashem, your body is a temple, you must look after it. You must consider your brain to be the Kodesh Kedoshim. So this is very important. You have to keep the Kodesh Kedoshim pristine. You have to
Yeah.
keep it in as best condition as possible. How can you do that? By getting the required number of hours of sleep a night, and so that's from a physical point of view. Now let's look at it from a spiritual point of view. We talk again, we're referring to Hashem as makom, the place. So perhaps from a physical point of view, you could say the brain is the Kodesh Kodashim in the temple, the sanctuary that you build him. Hashem charges us, and he wants us to refine our soul and our character, to create a sanctuary for him to dwell in. This is very important. He wants us, we learn in Tanya chapter 33 that he wants to find places to dwell in these lower worlds. So we are charged to create a sanctuary within ourselves, namely in our brain and our mind and our intellect, that Hashem can fill it with his Shekhinah. So when you're sleeping, through dreams, for prophets, for example, the prophets, they used to receive their prophecies in their dreams, most of them. So this is an arena, this is a makom for you to meet Hashem, or Hashem to give you messages that he deems you worthy for. Or even just in a lesser than a Navi, sometimes we dream about things that are bothering us in life, and our answer, and if we can interpret our dreams, we find the answers are there. They are given to us in a dream state. So perhaps this makom is an arena for Hashem to offer these remedies, or these messages, or these prophecies. So what you have to do, you have to keep the arena open at the right times. You have to sleep for 8 hours a night. Allow Hashem, if he wants to bestow upon you, you have to allow him the pristine sanctuary that he can deliver the message. Now, while I was thinking about this question, my Bar Mitzvah Sedra was Vayetze. And whenever I was thinking makom, why is it called makom? Why is it called makom? I kept on hearing myself laning in the shul, Vayifga b'makom, which is when Jacob arrived at the place. This is when he, in Vayetze, the beginning of Vayetze, it says, Vayetze Yaakov Be'Sheva vayelech Harana, and Jacob left Beersheva and he went to Haran. So Jacob left his comfort zone and he journeyed towards Haran. Vayifga b'makom, and he arrived at the place. Perhaps this alludes to him arriving mentally at a place that Hashem deemed worthy of revealing himself, as we know will happen to him. So Vayelen Sham Kivar Shemesh, and he lodged there because the sun had set. V'ikach me'avnei hamakom, and he took the stones of the place, and v'yasem mora shotav, and put them at his head. So already we see makom twice mentioned next to the head. V'yishkav v'makom hahu, and he laid down in that place. So 3 times in one pasuk he mentions makom, and he mentioned the head. And what's the next word? Vayachalom, and he dreamt. And behold, Sulamot Zavartzav, Rosham Magia Shemaima, B'nei Malachei Elokim, Olim V'yodim Bo. And he dreamt, and behold, a ladder set up on the ground, and its top reached to heaven, and behold, angels of God were ascending and descending upon it. And so he's arrived at the place. He's gone to sleep. He placed his head down, and he dreamt. So all of these fit into this makom, the thing. And Hashem gives them a message which says, I am Hashem, God of Abraham, your father, and God of Isaac. The land upon which you are lying to you, I will give it to you and your seed. And he continues, he says, and your seed shall be as the dust of the earth, and you shall gain strength westwards and eastwards and northwards and southwards, and through you shall be blessed all the families of the earth, and through your seed. And he continues, Hashem continues, And behold, I am with you, and I will guard you wherever you go, and I will restore you to this land, for I will not forsake you until I have done what I have spoken concerning you. And the next pasuk, V'yikatz Yaakov Mishneh Torah, and Jacob awakened from his sleep. So again, we're talking about sleep, place, dream, Hashem. And he says, Vayoma Echen Yesh Hashem b'makom hazeh v'anachi lo yadati. Indeed, the Lord is in this place, and I did not know. Perhaps he means that physical place. Perhaps he means the mental place. And I didn't know that Hashem was in my mind the whole time. He revealed himself to me in this dream. It must have been an overwhelming experience. And he says, he continues, Vayira, Vayoma, Manora, Hamakom Hazeh, Enze, Kiyim Beis Elohikim, V'zeh Sha'ar Shamayim. And he was frightened, and he said, how awesome is this place, this Makom. This is none other than the house of God. And this is the gate of heaven. So he mentions Hamakom, and he mentions Beis El, the house of God. So, a question you may ask. He's just had this incredible dream where Hashem has revealed himself to him. He wakes up, he's extremely frightened. He declares this to be the house of God. Would you not, if you were Jacob, decide to spend another night there?
At least another night.
Of course, perhaps another dream. You know, Hashem revealed himself to you. Would you not stay? No. The next pasuk, V'yashkem Yaakov baboka v'yikaches ha'even asher sam rosh hasof v'yosem osa mitzeva v'yitzok shem rosha. And Jacob arose early in the morning, and he took the stone that he had placed on his head and set it up as a monument, and he poured oil on top of it. V'yikra et shem hamakom hazeh Bet El v'yolam luz Shem ha'ir l'rishonah, and he named the place Bethel, Beis El, the house of God, but Luz was originally the name of the city. So he prepares to leave this place, but he leaves knowing that the Beis El is in his head. This is very important, I think. This is my interpretation. And so that's the reason why I believe the Rambam calls Hamakom Baruch Hu, that we have the place of Hashem is, the house of Hashem is in our heads, and we must keep it pristine, healthy, clean, ready to receive Hashem. We are, by our actions and by looking after ourselves, we do what God bids us to do, is to create a sanctuary for Hashem. And so this is why I believe that it's Rambam refers to this idea of sleeping, and refers to Hashem as the makom, as the place, as an important connection. And so that basically concludes Perek 3, and next week we have Perek 4, which is a very interesting subject, which is the Rambam's daily regimen for physical well-being. It's a day in the life of how you should act: sleeping, eating, drinking, bathing, all various aspects of life, and it will be very interesting. And if anybody is into nutrition or other things, it will be a very interesting episode.
Yes, fantastic. Thank you so much, Michael. That's absolutely mind-blowing episode. I'm so happy we did it in memory of our aunt and our grandmother. And B'ezras Hashem, they should both see in the Aliyat Neshama. So with that, we'll see you next week. Thank you so much.